from their encounters with races from other planets. The information is the activation. Let's awaken this world together. We are the forever students, and we will not be silent. We are the ones that we've been waiting for pretty while. Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yax. We're the embattled broadcast that looks at the past and explores it, to remain within the now, the present, to dictate the terms of our future. Hello, hello, hello. It's been about 6 days since we've been here. I'm happy to be here. I mean, it's been a while, but, you know, I try not to keep too many days in between episodes now, but I thought that this specific episode was a precedent that we're going to be setting forward, right? There's a lot of things we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about the 22,000-year archetype that has held humanity down and how we are on the vestige of the new aeon or eon, right? We're in the new paradigm. So before we get started, please, please, please smash that like button. Share this out to all social media platforms. I promise you won't get banned. We are very, very censorship friendly here. If there's something we have to talk about that's uncensored, we usually do it in a different format. One thing I do want to mention, and also, again, leave a comment when this is finished. We also have super chats open. If you feel like donating, we have all proceeds going back into the program itself to get us behind paywalls and things like that, to get newer and better information. I wanted to make a major announcement for in the next few weeks, we're going to be doing a show, and it's going to be a new show. And this new show is going to be on Rumble. It is going to be a little bit uncensored, well, a lot of uncensored, but it's going to be a little bit different. Now, we have our spiritual community here, and I have asked to partner up with somebody who is very big into politics. The show is going to be about the spirit of politics and what we see in the mainstream right now. I do immerse myself in political information as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to touch on a lot of American history topics, as well as precedents being set right now in the so-called media, you know, but we're going to be kind of creating our own avenue and talking. My position on this is I'm not the political one so much as I am the spiritual one, who is bringing more of a spiritual content to this specific political paradigm and how it's affecting people when these politicians kind of act the way that they do. It's going to be a lot of fun. My co-host, his name is Rob as well. Not hard, you know, not hard to remember, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're also going to be doing a little bit more on Rumble here and there as well, kind of get the channel going. If you haven't followed already, it's in the description of this chat. We're going to be adding some new uncensored content every week or so, hopefully over there too. We're really going to be ramping up production here and really getting into a lot of fun stuff. But tonight we are not talking about politics at all, as we usually do not here. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 22,000-year archetype and what that means and how it's held humanity back. So let's get right to business, because we've got a lot to cover. This may need a part 2. I'm not sure yet. It depends on how far we go right now. But let's get to business. So we're going to opening salvo. And one of the things I wanted to touch on first was everybody can feel it right now. We all feel this and what's happening around us and how everything is changing, sometimes in a moment's notice, sometimes it's a longer sort of progression of things moving in a direction. And that direction is a human direction. A lot of the lies, deceit, deceptions that we've seen over the last few years, but over the last few decades, have been all a part of these resets that they use to keep humanity in a solvent style compendium of capitulant people. We are no longer going to be subscribing to that specific channel, right? We're no longer going to be subscribing to that specific newsletter. A lot of us have pulled away from major outlets that want to give information to people because some of them have been so corrupted by monies, so corrupted by other peoples and points of view of narrative. There are so many different things that this 22,000-year archetype has put into place in the way of information, in the way of ascension, in the way of awakening. This is why the awakening is a necessity. It's not just some blase thing. It's literally a necessity. And this necessity comes out of survival. Something happens to humanity when they get pit into a corner. They become primal. And this ascension is not just intellectual. It's an essential it's an ascension of the primal instincts. Survive, right? So one of the things we have to look at is what has held us down, what has held us back, what has been on the neck of humanity, with whose foot's there, right? What are we talking about? So we're talking about something that happened a long time before the inception of this reality that we call the 3D reality. There have been parameters at play that have started this servitude of humanity. Now, we are slowly breaking those shackles now. A lot of it has to do with the energetic grids and networks and how we're interfacing with them, and the interfacing and the clearing out of these specific networks to essentially fulfill our energetic potential. When we fulfill our energetic potential and bring ourselves into alignment, we start to see things from a little bit of a different perspective. And that perspective changes, therefore, our outcomes and outlooks change. There's so many different avenues that we can go down, but I'm going to stick with one specific point. We're going to keep going back and forth between this specific point in history of 22,000 years ago, and all the players that we've talked about so many times over are there, right? So when we're getting into this, I want to talk about a lot of these perspectives and how they relate to right now and how they're affecting us in this 3D now. And a lot of us have broken, especially this community, has broken away from what has happened and this 22-year archetype. But to understand this, to help others awaken from their slumber, from their limited potential to their limitless potential. And I know it sounds like I'm kind of, getting a little bit, but because it pains me to feel these people around me who are in their sleeping state while walking around and waking in the waking world, right? This is like people like us. We stop for a second when we go outside, and we let Mother Earth kind of bombard us with her energies, and we stop and we take a deep breath, and we appreciate it all. Most people are stuck in this 9 to 5, where when they step outside, they go, okay, it's too hot, it's too cold, blah, blah, blah. But, they get ramped up. And this is part of a plan. So we're going to put out the plan so that people can see what's right in front of them, right? Whether mostly this is not for everybody to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. There are variations of this plan and this archetype that have had people go down avenues where their perspectives change too. So I don't want to say that I am the end all be all of this information. There are many different avenues to garner this information and take away your own personal perspective of how this is affecting modern day. So let's get back to the presentation. I apologize. That was a bit of a rant, but we're here. So a new eon, right? A new aeon, whatever you want to call it. We're here right now. Right now, we're here. And this is an exciting time to be alive. Some of the best. And, I saw in the chat that some people are not going to be attending the political show. That is absolutely fine. Listen, if politics is not your thing, I totally get it. We're going to have content over there as well for those who are not in the political arena or don't want to be in the political arena, right? It can be very tumultuous, and There's a lot of things that are negative there. So we're going to be protecting ourselves going into that information. But we're living through a great transition, an ascension process from a dark eon to a new eon. Many of the themes that were seeded by these dark forces tens of thousands of years ago of human subjugation, enslavement, are being reasserted in an attempt to maintain control. This is their patterns of resets. Yet most of humanity is unable to connect the dots or consciously participate in this collapsing timeline or the collapsing timelines around us. Remember, I told you there's three timelines active right now, two of which are butting heads, and they're slowly disintegrating from each other, while a third, which is the new eon, is coming right up between the middle of them and is going to shoot the gap and split them apart. And the two that fall away are going to be disassembled or disintegrated, right? So as we move towards a collective awakening, with the return of solar dragon level consciousness and the restoration of the aeonic couples within our system, we're strengthened in a collaboration with the with our greater power, with our source, right? A tipping point has been reached, and through recent sequences of grid work projects, more detail is being uncovered about humanity's true history, our design, our purpose, as well as those who have tried to harness and desecrate and enslave the various types of angelic humans that reside in the 3D. So, with the return of the 11th Atlantean dragon, this triple solar reishi that embodies the original Emerald Founder records for the Celtic Arthurian Grail lines, the timeline wars, clearings, and the spiritual body retrievals have been focused upon a cluster of timeline trigger events that were set into motion during the Ascension timeline rebellions. And this is approximately 22,000 years ago. So, as humanity is completing the timeline trigger events of the Ascension timeline, which manifested as the consciousness enslavement of human beings by the intruders of these off planet, these negative entities, the shackles of mental bondage connected to the mind control transmission that are suppressing the Atlantean records from beginning to dissolve. They want to keep them there because the Atlanteans were the first incarnation where the servitude of this higher echelon of negative entities first intruded. It was their beachhead into the awakening process, but into the roots of humanity. So awakening humans are at a crossroad in the organic ascension timeline, in which they're facing the next stage of consciousness evolution, which is a cycle that includes a newly discovered personal freedom to information that they did not have access to before. Many of us are experiencing this, where we go into deep meditation and we're able to have contact with our ancestors, and the ancestors are giving us information that is new and relevant to our position within this third dimensional matrix. Thus, the current dark night of the soul, or themes for the collective consciousness, are about awakening to realities of being enslaved in a consciousness suppression system. So, what does that mean, right? What are we tapping into here? What are we getting into? So, as we keep moving forward, throughout the many years of these mind control broadcasts and of the mental bondage and fear based materialistic thought forms that were relentlessly propagated within the controllers, being a manufactured death culture which turned into a slavery system. The hidden history of the non human entity invasion of this planet during the Ascension Rebellion that caused the Atlantean cataclysm and the global human slavery. This is where it all begins and sprouts. It starts to seed that opens up into the minds of the masses. So, as the cellular memories of an advanced human civilization and contact with other galactic faring species start to be seen or experienced, this can't be ignored anymore. For the collective's fears need to dissolve. And we're working on that right now. We're in the midst of this dissolving of these fears. So the inner desire to consciously participate with extracting ourselves away from the master slave narratives manufactured and run by the death culture. And it's expanding so that choosing love and unity with life and desiring to live in greater harmony with the natural world and others start to become much more important value systems. These inner realizations suddenly give us an interest in exploring more deeply the casual events behind what is happening in our world today, right? Inquiring upon the historical events that led us to co-create civilizations filled with such immense global human suffering and even slavery. Now, this is why we're also doing the show over on Rumble because again, we love the 40,000-foot view and the spiritual view. How does that relate to the 40-foot view? And we're going to bridge those gaps, right? One of the reasons why we're starting this program. When we shift our mental attitudes to make room for prioritizing humanitarian value systems, knowing we are in this consciousness transition together, we get an effortless boost forward and manifesting our divine purpose. As the universal keys to personally experience true mental, emotional, and spiritual freedoms are being graciously gifted to us at this point in time. I'm going to take a breath because that was a lot. And I know sometimes talking about these things are difficult. It's difficult to talk about this, but we must shed light onto that darkness. For it to dissolve completely, we must become fully aware of it, right? That's why we're doing this right now. Our mind, our consciousness, our intelligence is boosting exponentially. And while some people are experiencing this explosive nature that is essentially bombarding them now when they're able to sense it, some people are pulling away from it because it becomes too much for them because of this cellular damage to that DNA that has been repeatedly damaged to the point where it's not beyond repair either, but it's damaged to the point where they get so stuck in this slave or slavey mentality that once we start to go outside of it, it becomes something awkward or unusual to them. But we should be reveling in its ability to be unusual, because when things are unusual or strange, there's usually a greater power at play, right? Sometimes it's not, but majority of people who have woken up, when they start to get into these situations, it becomes less elusive and the answers come to us a lot easier. What we're looking for, right? What our answers are. So let us keep going here. Because I did we're probably gonna have a part two because I'm not even fully into this and there's a lot to talk about. So the disastrous hidden histories of this ascension timeline rebellion recorded in the planetary matrix for this time period can contain casual seed events of the great Thothian betrayal and the subsequent stages of these negative entities and their invasion. We've talked about the Thothian betrayal many, many times. And it's this Thothian betrayal that have some people misguided. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth, right? This Thothian betrayal, people look to these ancient gods that were from Sumeria, that were extraterrestrials, as people who that they can confide in now and sort of take their change of position at 100%. Remember, entities that are from outside of this 3D reality have an agenda. So all must be seen with shades of gray, because who knows what they're capable of to make their agenda reality, right? This is all extraterrestrials, not just any one, all of them. There are different layers at play, and we have to be cognizant of those layers to essentially maintain our freedom, but also maintain our sovereignty, right? Let us keep going. So many humans are totally unaware that we were considered tradable commodities both on and off planet. We have been repeatedly mind wiped, brainwashed, and ritually abused to forget who we are from the many cataclysmic resets, the DNA unplugging, and the erroneously absurd historical accounts given to explain away our advanced angelic human culture that has existed before we became slaves and after the Ice Age floods. So, thus, the Ascension timeline is a significant marker in the hidden historical timelines of planetary invasion. And it is when assorted negative entities begin to exchange treaties on and off planet, which include the systematic hunting down of the Magi Grail line of angelic humans for extermination, especially those who were from the lineages of the Blue Flame Melchizedek Templars protecting the planetary networks. There was no warning to hide or prepare when the great Thothian betrayal gave our enemies all they needed to take us all over. And as the full scale planetary invasion was launched from the interdimensional planes and space, which rained down electromagnetic destruction in the form of fires, explosions, earthquakes, and floods, directing technological weapons designed for maximum impact of grid damage and destabilization, unleashing the mass destruction of the holographic structures of the sun star networks connected to the sacred portals, stargates, ley lines, sundials, temples, and cathedrals across the planet. The invaders decided upon who would manage the conquered territories, covering up our world and human beings as commodities to be traded and bartered, while assigning angelic human diamond sun genetics for consciousness enslavement. This also ushered in the design of trauma based mind control programs that were customized to manipulate the tribal shield genetic key coding to be used for controlling the stargates and manipulating the global grid systems. Right? It's deep. When we as a country go to war, right? There are several layers of what a war entails. There's intelligence, there's subterfuge, there's propaganda, there is the ability of cutting off natural resources to those countries to to basically starve their economy. This is what we're talking about. These are the different layers of an invasion. Now, when people start to talk about that, things like Project Bluebeam, where all of a sudden we're going to see a force of or show of force of aliens in the sky or extraterrestrials in the sky, they've already been here. So it's not them coming down to us from the stars. It's them revealing themselves from behind the curtain. And when they do that, what's going to be their ultimate goal at that point? Is that the last vestige of their power over us? Or are they using it to try and regain control and assert themselves as the dominant force of this planet? So, something to think about right there. Well, let's keep going. So these negative entities decided which of the native Asani tribes would be assigned to each of the intruding negative factions for serving their antichrist alien agendas that included ongoing abductions, human trafficking for genetic modification experiments, developing secret space programs, and specializing slave workforces, alien hybridization and breeding programs, as well as identifying Maji Grail King lineages from each Asani tribe that were specifically targeted for ongoing extermination or red cube cloning based upon the historical DNA records. So, through the management of human DNA and hybridization breeding programs, along with intentional destruction of actual historical records, the negative entities inserted false holographic timelines and false holographic identities for dividing and conquering in order to hijack the collective, co creative consciousness for controlling timelines to ultimately thwart planetary ascension. This is why this period, 22,000 years ago, is called the Ascension Timeline Rebellion. And as the invaders began to work feverishly, negotiating on and off planet treaties and cultivating strategic alliances in order to terraform the planetary grid and gain control over human DNA and manipulate the internal Templar systems, gaining access into the Albion light body. Thus, their long-term strategy was thwarting every option imaginable for attaining consciousness freedom with AI systems copying and cloning the instruction sets into reversal networks and phantom matrices in order to destroy the possibility of planetary ascension cycles that was destined to begin when the universal gateways opened in 2012. This is why it was such a big year. We keep reverting back to this year. Those universal gateways opening would have been fast tracking ascension. We would have been at the pinnacle of ascension by then, right? So, as we keep going here, and this picture that you're seeing shows you the reptilian brain, right? Those two triangles within the circle are the past, present, and future, and mind, body, and spirit, Stevie. I've been asked that many times. They are not the symbols of the satanic or of the people who have distorted these symbols. The two symbols in my specific logo is the past, present, and future, in mind, body, and spirit. Two echelons coming together to give you the full spectrum or the totality of your potential and who you are, right? I don't say that enough, but that's what that means. And all around it is in the center is the Milky Way, but all around it is space and the universes, because out there is inherent with the light that comes from the center of this Milky Way galaxy, and it's in all of us as well, which is the light that comes out behind it, right? You see the light coming from behind the triangles. So that is my, I guess, my motto or my modus operandi, and that's why it's so inherently the triangles have definitely been distorted from their original context, right? And these negative or these elite power-based negative entities have done that to make people feel like there's some sort of Illuminati or New World Order style affiliation with them. And there is some satanic symbolism, but that was the later, I guess, the satanic symbolism of those triangles comes after their original meaning, right? And I appreciate the question, Stevie, for sure, because not everybody knows this. And my thinking when I go into these logos and thumbnails are it's more so to trigger something within your mind to help you see past what's actually just a title, right? I want to make sure that's you know that's there's more layers than just the surface level, because again, we pontificate this position of 40,000 feet and then 40 foot. So we're going to meet in the middle as well, right? We got to examine both, but come back to that middle place, which is why the Milky Way sits in the middle of this specific logo. And then if you look at the whole thing, it goes all the way up, right? There is a radio tower that is broadcasting this to the entirety of the universe. And that's because we're sending out our signal to create the ripples that we want for dictating the terms of our future. And that's how we get there. All of that we say in the beginning of this program, which is like, monikers or mottos, all stems from the logos, right? Not the solar logos, but the show logos. So I'm glad you asked that question, but let us keep going now. So, as you can see, the picture in front of you shows your reptilian brain, the neocortex, and the limbic brain. So, their long term goals were continuing with the negative entity colonization strategies for enforcing reptilian ownership over human bloodlines for carrying out these specific objectives or planetary objectives, right? In which these intruders use human genetics as their currency exchange for on and off planet human trafficking, sexual slavery, and as products created for consumption. Earth became the most valuable real estate investment portfolio in the local solar system, filled with big business conglomerates mining generic resources and extending into other planetary systems for bartering and trade that serve the interests of the invading races. So these negative entities have failed in their objective to prevent planetary ascension, right? That is currently underway right now. And we're now in the process of clearing out the miastic heaps of dead energy, archonic parasite nests, and superimposed karmic loads, repairing the grid networks damaged by AI machinery and evictions of assorted alien factions and related cleanup spiritual work connected to the string of tragic events when humanity was turned into a slave race 22,000 years ago. I myself and this group of people that is here today going through this information is doing grid work right now. We are all clearing out our own connection to the grid. And when your soul or your consciousness has a direct connection to the grid, your consciousness energy overpowers whatever negative aspects are related in that grid or in that specific ley line. And you are thus connected to the heart or the center of the planet. And that helps clear out negative things that are residing within these planetary networks. So, as historical events surrounding the planetary matrix, right, the core themes humanity is facing are directly connected to the events that sealed our fate as a captured slave race 22,000 years ago. The contrast between the consciousness states of slavery versus freedom, servitude versus liberty, sovereignty versus subjugation, the master and the slave archetype forces are being exponentially heightened within the collective consciousness and interpersonal dramas right now. This holds the cellular memories recorded in our DNA connected to individual and collective human enslavement processes on our planet as it was being invaded as well. And these same memories are surfacing in personal timelines in which we are psychologically and emotionally clearing out our personal pieces of this shared collective trauma of the global human slavery. Now, in order to fully spiritually heal, each individual must awaken into their authentic humanity and recognize the fear based division of mind control that oppresses all human beings. And in order to finally see the higher truth of what and who is actually behind the enforcement of consciousness slavery on this planet. This means we must let go of our personal fears, which keep us in denial from seeing and knowing the truth in many of the outer events taking place all around us, seeing the promoted ideologies and the negative entity culture or the culture wars, which are extremely harmful and designed to enslave the human race, especially the children, right? So, this is one of the reasons, again, why the next workshop is going to be past life traumas, present life traumas, being able to recognize them, being able to learn from them, and being able to heal from them. This is going to be one of the most important energetic workshops we've ever done. And I haven't promoted it yet because we're letting Omar do his Bush crime family one first, as don't want to make people, it's a paid event. Both are. So I don't want to make cost super expensive for everybody within 1 month, right? Because who has extra money right now to spend that? And it's not about the money, it's about the ability to fund this operation, what we're doing right now, but also to give something back to people which they can use to help others. That's the biggest thing. We are creating healers every day just by the information. Now imagine we use the mythology or the practice within these workshops. I promise you, these workshops will change your life. Whether it's something you want to do or pass on to somebody else, it will change everything, right? I'm telling you. As you can see from the people who have been a part of these workshops, we have gotten nothing but amazing, amazing results from what we've done so far. So we're going to keep that going with bringing the next more important workshop, which is this resolution of traumas, past life and present, and potentially future. Because if they're not resolved in this timeline or in this incarnation, you may have to repeat the incarnation cycle again to bring them to the forefront and then again resolve them, right? You know, it's crazy. It's crazy how these things that are happening even 22,000 years ago affect us right now, and in such a way that it keeps us in this archetype that keeps repeating itself. And we've probably had at least 3 to 4 timelines or incarnations, is a better way to put it, within this system, right? So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And I hope that you'll join us because we're going we're going to make a difference. Hopefully in our own lives, but in others' lives as well. And again, it comes with a PDF package, graphs, the full transcript of what we say, the practices and methods that we use to correct the paths, all of it. You get all of it. You take it with you. That's part of what you're paying for, right? That takes time, which is actually what you're paying for, is the culmination of all that information. Let us keep going because part two is definitely going to happen because we're already at 40 minutes and we've barely got anywhere. So, part two will probably be up in a few days. I will be working a lot earlier this week. So, I'll be out earlier, which means the shows will probably be around 8 o'clock, but we're not done yet. So, the main focus for the awakening population is made upon the foundations of our inner spiritual study, the self reflection, and the personal commitment to expand one's consciousness into expressing benevolence towards all of life, even while present in energy fields filled with hatred, false accusations, and dark ignorance. We continually choose unconditional love as the guiding force we want to expand and grow inside of our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So, as we expand our consciousness into loving kindness and compassionate thoughts, we shift our perspective to feel our deeper interconnection with all of life in the natural world. So, many people, especially starseeds, have undergone repeated consciousness wiping attacks during sleep state or abduction on interdimensional planes, in the attempts to scramble cellular memories recorded within their original genetic records, or to remove them completely by intentionally contaminating their blood with toxins and genetic materials from these invading negative forces or animals. The planet has had serious problems with intruder entities using advanced interdimensional technology for the purpose of implanting false memories and false identities into people's timelines in order to exert control over the person's belief systems and to emotionally manipulate that person to cause harm to themselves or to others. This phenomenon of implanting false memories, false identities, and false images into an individual's consciousness layers is commonly done through holographic inserts or artificially cloned light body parts and red cube technology, which projects out fallen timelines that will appear as clairvoyant imagery, clairaudient voices coming from the artificial virtual realities. That was a mouthful, but that is so important. Think about what I said. We've talked about this. We've talked about this in the way that when we're looking at what we're getting from the other side or behind a veil or interdimensionally, right? Whatever it might be, we have to also use our discernment to know where it's coming from. Now, if you've been on the path of unconditional love, more likely than not, you've blocked out these entryways of these negative entities using this type of mechanism for implanting clairvoyant or clairaudient or clear, the imagery of some false narrative or fallen timeline. But there's still times where we're at our weakest and we go into meditation, right? We go into meditation to try and get ourselves back to the factory reset. And because we're in that weakened state and we don't shield ourselves properly, they can try and slip some of those narratives in. It's important to understand how this works so that we don't fall susceptible to these negative entities' mind controlled strategies, right? Now, again, this is it's a much darker episode than I meant it to be. But sometimes we have to look at the dark to understand how to counteract it with the light. There is a balance of everything, right? The masculine, the feminine, the light and the dark, everything. Fight, flight. There's a balance. Everything has a balance. Discernment and understanding, right? There's a lot there. So as we keep going, and this picture resonated with me because it looks like their third eye is open. They're tapping in to their consciousness and their soul, and it's bearing light all around them. Now, it's going down their chakra system as well, but it's showing you that once you've engaged these specific points within your body of energy, the light emanates all around you, and a lot of darkness cannot reach you when that happens. So take a moment and stare at the picture because it means something for sure. I know it's going to resonate with people out there because it resonates with me. So, these many layers of inserts can be cleared easily from one's consciousness record if one is devoted to seek the truth and find God within, combined with the willingness or source within, right? Combined with the willingness to address personal shadow clearing in order to let go of the egoic attachments and dependencies upon these same falsified records or self-deceptions. When the content or personal narratives are understood to be falsified records placed in the consciousness body from these negative entities in order to deceive and manipulate that individual into taking harmful actions, those alien implants will automatically clear in the inner light of truth, and the bindings connected to demonic entities using them to siphon the losh from the light body will release. Many practicing Satanists and black magicians are actually totally enslaved by the 11th dimensional system. They have been relentlessly tortured into submission and used as worker slaves for the higher echelons supporting the negative entities of ritual abuse, networks for building their phantom black heaven. And fortunately, we have had a significant event begin within the last month in which the AI machinery network that is most common source of global satanic program used by these black magicians for ritual abuse objectives has been identified and is being powered down and extracted as we speak. Further, those wearing false identities, protected cloned copies, and running artificial timelines and alien implants have been identified within this system as well, which is another power source being extracted from the black magic networks used by practicing Satanists and Luciferians across the global grid. Now, that's a victory lap. When we talk about Holly Weird and some of these political pundits, they are a part of this system, and we know it. And trust me, now everybody knows it. The veils have been lifted. You can talk to anybody, and they will tell you that they've heard of these so called conspiracy theories. And they say that these conspiracy theories, while they seem far fetched, are becoming more and more closer to the reality of what we're talking about and what is actually happening. It's crazy how many people I've told things months ago, right? Months ago. And again, they come back to me and say, first off, how did you know that? Second, when you told me that, I couldn't believe it. But now it seems as if it's the truth, right? It's crazy. It's crazy how conspiracy theories are fact. And most of the people who have created these so-called conspiracy theories have done so much more homework and research with external resources other than mainstream propaganda to come to these higher intellectual conversations. It's crazy to see that these people who spew talking points are trying to negate the work that they've done. This is one of the reasons why we use Clubhouse, which is an app for us to have open ended conversations, the entire community. And if you're not on it, I know people maybe not want to do it. I suggest you get it and come and hang out in the full spectrum universe over there because we talk about all of these things, all of them, from politics and the Satanists. It's another unfiltered app, and when we don't have time to put a video together like you're looking at right now, we go into these spaces when we have free time to wake people up with just audio, because you don't need to see me to get the message, right? The message can be conveyed through links, through people talking to each other, creating bridges, right? Not burning them down. Conspiracy truths. Very, very much, Sugar Bee. Very much. So, you know, I'm kind of contemplate whether I want to go further right now, right? So once we get to the next area, there is going to be a lot more that we're going to talk about, the actual events themselves and how we get into these events and how these events are a little bit more of who we are today and how it's capitulant for so many people. And again, I hold this community a little bit on a pedestal because I know we've done a lot of work to free ourselves from all this garbage, right? And to live in these moments and reside within the love of all, right? And everything for Telegram is in the description below. And I have the chat open again for questions if you have any now. But I think we're going to close this down in about 5-10 minutes because I don't want to overdo it, right? I'm trying to lay this out in a way that is showing the people who are watching that are of those negative aspects of humanity, right? The Satanists, the Luciferians, the negative entities, because they are watching right now. I know they are. I know that they watch this program when we do this, right? You can find Clubhouse in your app store everywhere. You type in Clubhouse or go to clubhouse.com. If anybody needs information on how to get there, I'm going to put my email into the chat and you can email me and I will get you there and help you get it to be a part of it because it's a real asset for everybody to have this ability to connect every day. I mean, we do rooms. We have another group. We have a full spectrum universe group over there, but we also have another group that I run called the Truth Seekers Tavern. And it is literally anything and everything you could think of, right? All topics are open, everything, all agendas are being revealed. We did a lot over the last 3 years with helping people understand what was being implemented into their bodies by going out and trusting pharmaceutical companies, things like that. So it's important that we put a positive spin on this negative information. And we're doing that right now because we're looking at everything that's happening around us. We see that something is amiss for the people who are not a part of this community. Something is happening to them. They're either being shaken awake radically or almost violently, or they go deeper and deeper into this NPC sleep. Why do we think that is? And Baby Love Dragon, I'm going to touch on your question in a moment, but why do we think that is? I'm going to tell you what my understanding of it is. These mind control programs are being fired up as if they were in beta phase and now moving to you know, the actual game on, right? Because they turn them off for a moment to let them reset, to try and bring humanity back to a reset. And now they're implementing more AI programming into this mind control. And they're using different avenues, such as social medias, right? Which is a huge place for mind control. Everybody is addicted to the 3 to 10 to 6 second video, the TikTok, boom, 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 boom. Scroll through content as fast as you can. That actually disrupts the nerves within your brain in the risk and reward style mentality, like a drug addict would. But the social media side of it is a lot easier to quell, right? We can still dive into these systems without letting it affect us in that nature, which is something we're going to talk about on a later episode too, is how to navigate social media and protect ourselves without getting involved in the Satanist Luciferian traps, right? So we had a question from Baby Love Dragon. She says, do you think the Anunnaki are here and involved in what's happening now? I I want to say no. I want to say no because if we think about the track record of the Anunnaki on this planet, it's been pretty bad. Pretty bad. Now, they may be here, but I don't believe that they're involved, right? They're here like every other race is. I think they've taken a back seat because of the harm that they've caused humanity and what they've done to humanity and how they've genetically mutated us. Now, they are a portion of us is them, right? So they are our brothers and sisters, and hopefully they've seen the error of their ways and they're moving back towards a galactical focus that is a harmony as opposed to a territory or a conquering of people, which we've known that they've really had a rough go at it since trying to come back. Now, there are certain people who say that they are in contact with specific entities of the Anunnaki, and I'm not going to sit here and say whether it's real or true or false. I don't know, right? I can only go by what I understand. And what I understand is that when we look at these entities, we take them in shades of gray all the time because their agendas outweigh humanity's freedom in every instance. In every instance. So whether they're going to be our friends today and our enemies tomorrow, or our enemies today and our friends tomorrow, is up to them, right? So we have to use our discernment to think about what's being asked of us or what information is being given to us from these entities. And what purpose does it serve them as well as us? And that will tell you which kind of entity you've got. Now, they could sweet talk you and give you the truth for 6 encounters with them. And then the 7th, they could lie to you again. So each and every message must be discerned. Every one. So this is where we're going to stop tonight. With all that being said, I love each and every one of you as if you were my own family. I promise you that. I love everybody on the face of this planet. I love every animal. I love every tree. I love every piece of matter. And I'm setting an intention right now to love more. Right? Because we are the ones that we've been waiting for. If not us, who's going to do it? Nobody. The information that we go through is the activation each and every day. Now, please like, share, subscribe, and also please, please, please leave a comment when this is finished. That helps the algorithmic boost all the time. Thank you so much for being here. Super chats, again, are still open until the end of the show. If you're inclined to donate, we really appreciate it. It helps fund this operation. We are completely listener supported. I love you all again. I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend. I appreciate each and every one of you being here and sharing this out. Let's do this. Let's get this ball rolling. We are the ripple effect that changes the future from these moments forward. I love you all. Have a great evening.